What I'm going to share with you is actually the 6 stages of education that we have. The fables is only number 1. And first of all, indeed, there are little stories for the children. And what we do, now that you've seen this picture, with telling the stories, you set the basis. You're right here. But you're doing that at that intersection of all the intelligences. We start from 3 years on, already, yes. But depending on your storytelling, you know, you could do it at 3, 4, 5, 6. I animate them until 12 years with the same stories. So we have divided the 36 into best for the first year, best for the second year. So we know how to flow them. But in the end of the day, I leave it up to your judgment how you feel the kids are responding. Because we know that it's easier to start with the 5 kingdoms of nature. Then going against the flow, that's a bit more difficult. That would not be the logical one to start with. So there is a logic of doing the series of 1 year, second year, third year, etc., as you have been publishing as well. But on the other hand, I always give you the freedom to decide differently. This is not a rule. The second phase is where we say we use the fables and we're now guiding the children to get to the realities. Because when they're 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, they're not so much into the realities yet. But when they're in that second phase and they've seen the fables, we're guiding them to see the reality, what is happening in the world with these fables. And what we're doing is we're broadening that base, that core base of knowledge, that systems view, that interconnected. We're broadening that. The third phase that we do with the fables, and now the children can be 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, we ask them to write their own fable. But the challenge is enormous, because we ask them to create their own fable without words. Pictures only. Images and dance only. And it is an exercise, if you see the results, it's amazing. Because these children become so good communicators. We have programs in the United States where every class received 1 Polaroid camera. And they make the fable by taking pictures, and they make a poster, and the poster is a fable. It's a lot of pictures. And they create it by using pictures. We have another program in Boston, in Boston, in Massachusetts, in the United States, whereby the children make a big digital picture, a series of pictures. And these are actually done with drawings, digital drawings. They're 12 years old. And they create a story, no words. Why don't I use the words? Because I want them to develop all their other capabilities of communicating, but for the words. Because when they're 10 and 12, they know already who's the best talker. They know very well. And so we want to create a more level playing field. But what happens is that many kids who would naturally not come forward and talk and present and speak and do drama, they have a great opportunity to participate. So it gives a great chance to have others come through. And what happens then when they have to develop this story, and they take 1 year to do it, it's not short term, it's a whole year, then what you're doing is you're really deepening the knowledge. They're starting to find their own territory, their own area within the knowledge of CA stands, I'm sorry, this is Spanish abbreviation, conocimiento académico, scientific knowledge, i.e. inteligencia emocional, emotional intelligence. Art is arte. And yeah, that is called ecoliteracy, and in Spanish they call it ecolibracia, because if you say sistemas in Spanish, then it means computers. So we couldn't use sistemas. We have to use E for ecoliteracy. The next stage is a stage where we really get the children to do things. In English we call it making waste work. A very successful program in the United Kingdom. We have 70 schools in the United Kingdom doing this program. And our children who've done this program have won science awards every year. What is the program? The program is that the children go and look at the local business, the local industry, and they see how much waste is generated. And they have to discuss amongst themselves, what are we going to do with this waste? What would we do? And of course the company already has a recycling program, and the children, they don't think in recycling, they think in getting it from one business to another business. How to create more value. How to keep it clean, no viruses being transferred. They know all these principles by now, very well. And so what you're doing, the children have a chance to really go deep into all the intelligences that they've been gathering. I give you an example. In Japan, where we've also done the program, we work with Shiseido, lipstick. And an all-girls school from Kamakura took up the project to look at how do they make lipstick. Because there's a factory of Shiseido in Kamakura. And so the girls went to see, and of course the factory very happy to receive all these girls who were all going to use it. But then the girls learned how is the waste generated and what is done with the waste. And the girls were not only interested in the waste generated at the factory, they wanted to know the waste generated in Indonesia, where the cacao butter was coming from. And they wanted to know what was done with the waste in Indonesia. And of course the factory director said, but I'm only in charge of the factory. I'm in charge of the waste of the factory. And the girl said, but that's your waste. Said, no, it's not my waste. It's the waste of the farmers, That's not my responsibility. And the girl said, yes, it is your responsibility. You're all part of the same system. And then the girls started realizing that the red color is actually a metal. And they didn't like that idea. And they asked, why don't you use cochineal, which is a plant extract? And they said, it's not stable. They said, but the lipstick is only for a day. I'm not putting it on my lips like a car. And so you can see the discussion that comes up. And these girls, and in the end, they go and design their lipstick. How would they make the lipstick? They're 14. And they produce it themselves. And they put up all the charts on what has to be done with the shell of the nuts in Indonesia. What can we do there? And then, of course, they heard the story that whatever is an agricultural waste, and that's fibrous, the kingdom that takes care and makes value out of it are the mushrooms. So they're starting mushroom farming in Indonesia. And so what we had arranged with the company is at the end, the girls get together and make a presentation to the company executives about how they're going to make lipstick in 20 years when they're in charge of the factory. And of course, you can imagine they're 14, 20 years, they're 34. And of course in Japan, there's no girl in charge of a factory at the age of 34. I mean, they're still sharpening pencils. And so as a result, for these girls to be in front of these executives, it's a unique experience. But it's a particularly unique experience for those executives. And they responded and said, but you haven't studied production engineering. I said, we will not. Because what you're doing is not what we will be doing. And I said, but this is how we're one of the most efficient factories in the world. Okay. I said, yes, but in 20 years, and then they have this nice phrase that comes along, in 20 years, when we're old, we will do it this way. And in 20 years, you'll not be in the factory anymore. And you know, it creates a very interesting debate, because now the children have to really move into the emotional intelligence. Because the problem is not the children, it's the engineers who sit there in the factory who don't understand how these children are thinking. But the children know how to present the logic. They have the 8 to 10 arguments ready. You know, that creates a very different child. As a result, I led that program myself when I was living in Japan. And I still know all these girls. All of them. And several of them decided after that meeting. I know 2 of them, one of them is now doing her PhD. She said, I'm becoming a lawyer. Because if these guys think that way, I'm going to take them through the arm of the law. I'm going to change the laws. Because they don't understand what we think. They don't take us serious. And you know, afterwards we got a complaint from Shiseido. These were very unruly girls. They were not, I mean, they should have more respect for the engineers who are making these quality products, etc., etc., etc. But that meeting with the executives shaped the career of many of these girls. And one of the worst effects for the company is, I don't think any of them uses lipstick. Because they realize what's inside. And they realize what is happening with the lipstick. They saw the context, which was never shared before. I know 2 of them are actually still working on making a natural lipstick with a natural color, where they looked at the whole process of making the lipstick. And we have a manual for that. We have a book. It's called Making Waste Work. I've written that. And that book allows us to go through the process. Then we have a program called the New Economy. The New Economy. What we're doing there is where the children, they're now 15, 16 years, okay? They're not kids anymore. They have the science, they've been talking to business already, they've been looking at how we design some products ourselves. And now when they're at that stage, they're feeling that the economy of money, 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 money is not good enough. We have to do more. And how do we do it? And so for a year, they're designing their principles of the economy, for example. And very often, the same principles come back wherever they do it around the world. The good quality products should be cheap. Okay, makes sense, right? Because today, everything that's very good, and very good for your health, and very good for the environment, is expensive. So the kids come to the conclusion, we want an economy where we were able to produce products where the good for the environment is cheap. That's our principle. That's the new economy. And so they go through the exercise and they come up with these principles. They come up with the principle that the commons, you know the concept of the commons, should be for free. Water should be for free. And then of course people say, no, but it's a big business. We don't think it should be a business. We think water should be for free. And so, why? Well, because it's base of life. How can you have to pay for the base of life? And so they come into, but they are strong marketeers. They have good understanding of how supply and demand functions. So what is very interesting is that they start understanding that the present economic system should evolve to a better one.